and welcome back to the podcast that will always make sure your life is full of color. Welcome back to the best part of your week. Welcome back to the Love, Death, and Movies podcast, internet's #1 film breakdown and review podcast, the podcast that crushes watch lists week after week. Every month is a different genre. Every week is a different film in that genre. So follow us on everything, join along for the ride, and let's watch some movies. I'm one of your hosts, of course, Ash, and join with me each and every week is Harry. Harry, how's Australia treating you today?
It's good.
Yeah? Just good?
No, it's really good. It's like pretty beautiful weather at the moment, which is great. We went through like a a big time period where it was like a couple of weeks where it was just super hot and it sucked. And I think we're past that. So, Australia's pretty good. 2 more weeks until AFL starts. That's my...
Oh, no.
Yeah, we got specifically 13 days.
So get ready for every episode to include at least a 5-minute tangent about the games. We're back to that time of year.
Yeah, I can't wait.
For now, we're finishing off our month of time travel movies, which is crazy that we're already almost done. With a more unconventional choice, but a film that Harry's never seen and a movie that not enough people in general have seen. So really, this is just my excuse to get more awareness to this film, and that is Pleasantville. But before we get into that, of course, tell me about your week. Did you watch anything good? Do anything fun?
What did I watch? I'm sure I watched some stuff.
Did you finish Severance?
No. I'm still halfway through the first season. I need to get back to it. I've just had so much on. But I'm loving it so far, so I will definitely watch it. What did I watch? I watched The Gorge, that Apple TV. Yeah. It's a movie that I should love. It's like that's the type of like sci-fi slop. That's like what I love. But it's like 4 movies in one. My local cinema's doing a bunch of retro shit, so I got to see 2001: Space Odyssey, and I'm going through all the David Lynch films there as well. So I got to see The Elephant Man, great movies. When I saw The Last Showgirl, you've seen that, haven't you?
Yeah,
I really liked that film.
I liked it too.
I thought that Dave Bautista was awesome. I thought Pam was spectacular. I thought she should have probably been nominated from it.
I think they could have gone deeper into some of the characters. It was kind of like a very, not shallow, that's not the word I'm looking for, but it was just like not a very
bit surface level. Yeah.
Yeah, but I still really enjoyed the performances.
No, for sure. I thought that was great. I got to see one of my favorite bands at the Opera House the other night. This Icelandic rock band called Kaleo. You would heard of them. They're do you know the song like "Way Down We Go"? The "Way Down We Go, Go."
Not sure if I heard it. I'd recognize it.
That's actually identical to how it sounds.
It's not ringing a bell right now.
Yeah, it's identical.
Okay.
But they were awesome. They were epic, which is sick. I bought tickets to so much shit lately. One of my best mates were going to like a 100-person in the crowd show for Mumford & Sons in a couple weeks. So that will be fucking awesome. It's like they're calling it the tour before the tour, and that's also at the Opera House. So that's like one of the main things I'm looking forward to. But that's kind of it. I feel like there's more stuff, but that's kind of it. How's your week?
Also, one of my bucket list items is to go to the Sydney Opera House. So
pretty cool in there.
I'm busy finally. One day.
They got an awesome restaurant in there. So when you come to Sydney, definitely pay. It's expensive, but like it's worth it.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, no, my week was fine. Pretty hectic at work, but I did watch some stuff. I've been catching up on some of the releases from last year, trying to sort of watch stuff for the Oscars, but also just like things I didn't get a chance to see. I finally watched Sing Sing. Absolutely loved it.
Yes.
Finally watched Amelia Perez. Absolutely did not love it. Finally watched Baby Girl. That's a movie.
That is a movie.
It is definitely a movie.
You never look at a glass of milk again.
No, I hate milk. Like I could not drink a glass of milk if someone paid me. So that whole thing was vile, in my opinion. But yeah, that was a wild ride. Absolute wild ride.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, let's get into it. So again, we're talking about Pleasantville, directed by Gary Ross, released in October of 1998. The story goes as follows. Impressed by high school student David's devotion to a 1950s family TV show, a mysterious television repairman provides him with a means to escape into the black and white program with his sister Jennifer. While David initially takes to the simplistic, corny world of the show, Jennifer sets about jolting characters with doses of reality that unexpectedly bring a little color into their drab existence. So like I mentioned before, it's not really a time travel movie in the normal definition, but I would say it falls more in line with something like WandaVision,
Mm.
where you're kind of like living this like false reality, but at the same time, there's actual characters coming from their time in the 90s going back to a different time. So I think that's where it sort of gets middle ground time travel. So we're counting it, for the sake of getting awareness out about this movie.
Yeah.
Um, so with that, I will ask you for your initial thoughts because you've never seen it and I have no idea what you think.
I really like this movie. This movie's fun. The idea is original. I feel like there's been a bunch of like parodies for this. Like it's one of those movies that you see and then you like remember all like the cultural like
Mm.
references. I think there's like an episode of Simpsons about Pleasantville.
Yes,
Um,
there is actually. Yeah, you're right.
so yeah, like there's like a lot of things like that. But I thought it was really cool. I thought the way that it's like a pretty clear story, a pretty clear message of like individuality and finding
Mhm.
yourselves and self discovery and stuff, and that's what bringing color to life and stuff. But the way that that's filmed and like how subtle things get color is pretty cool. Paul Walker, whoa, that was a little jump scare for me to see him
Yeah,
pop up. Man, that guy was hot as fuck.
he was.
Yeah, wow. But no, I really enjoyed this film. I think this is really unique, and it was a really fun first watch.
Nice. Well, good. Yeah, I've always loved this movie. I just find it so charming. I love the way they use the black and white with the addition of the color. I think for a movie made in the 90s, it's really well done. I think that the color scale and everything is really, really nice. So I think to capture what they're trying to do, the way that they edited it and filmed it was really well done. And I just love the cast. I think it's a really kind of random assortment of actors that you've never really seen all together before, but I really enjoy them um, in the group effort of all coming together. So I'm glad you liked it. I'm curious to hear your thoughts along the way, and obviously we'll save our scores for the end. But this is one of those ones for me where it's like I know it's quite cheesy, but it's just so charming that I just love it. So always gonna be a defender of this movie. So hopefully more people have watched it leading up to this episode, and let's just get into it. So we open with being introduced to the world of classic commercials, TV advertisements before getting a glimpse into the life of 1950s set TV program called Pleasantville. After meeting George and Betty Parker and their children, Bud and Mary Sue, the main family at the center of the TV show, we flash to modern day 1998, where we meet awkward, timid David, played by Tobey Maguire, who I just absolutely love in this movie, and his rebellious sister Jennifer, played by the forever charming Reese Witherspoon. We learn that David is a Pleasantville fanatic and does nothing but lay around watching the show when he's home, basically, and does nothing but talk about it when he's at school with his friends, and that their parents are divorced and their dad doesn't seem to be around much. While fighting over who will get control of the TV remote, Jennifer and David manage to break the remote, and apparently the TV won't work without it. Some kind of new technology that needs a remote to turn on.
Yeah.
So weird. Within seconds, a TV repairman shows up and provides them with a special remote that, when used, ends up transporting them into the TV and into the life of Pleasantville, a charming town with white picket fences and smiles all around. Jennifer assumes the role of the daughter, Mary Sue, and David assumes the role of Bud. I think this aspect of it is really interesting that they're not just dropped in here as like new people.
Yeah.
They're
Like
dropped
play
in
their
like
part.
characters. Yeah. Jennifer is losing her mind being stuck in this show because she cannot stand the way that everybody acts. David's excited about it and reminds her to just play the role to not mess anything up for the people of Pleasantville. Just as Jennifer tells her brother they're stuck in Nerdville, a handsome Paul Walker. I put handsome because I'm trying to be appropriate, but hot as
He's
fuck works
hot.
too.
He gets the smoke show treatment if you allow it. Like,
Definitely put him on the list. It's funny. I've been watching a lot of the Fast and Furious movies like over the last couple of months, and it was a little jump scare for me too because I had almost forgotten that he's in this.
yeah.
It's a totally different character than what I'm used to seeing him in, so it was definitely jarring. But he plays Skip. He drives up and talks to Jennifer, who I feel like she's kind of immediately smitten by him, but she's also just like thinks this whole world is ridiculous, so she's not really buying it. Um, but they attend school as Mary Sue and Bud, where teachers review things like geography. That includes only 2 streets in the entire town because they know nothing outside of that. Jennifer steps in to ask what is outside of Pleasantville, and the teacher responds, "The end of Main Street is just the beginning of Elm Street." Just one big loop. During PE class, David plays basketball and notices that players never miss a basket no matter what. I love that scene. It's really funny when he like throws it up against the wall and it just like bounces everywhere and goes in.
That's so cool.
Yeah. David convinces Jennifer to agree to a date with Skip because that's what happens in the show. And he urges her to understand that they need to change nothing about their world so that they can get home. And she finally agrees. So I'll stop here real quick. Any thoughts on the intro or any of the characters or this world so far?
The guy just fucking kidnaps these kids and puts
Yeah.
them into a show. Like that's like I want to focus. He's just like, I'll be back in a week. Well, what like
Hmm.
outside this show, like is I'm gonna skip ahead a bit. In terms of the time when they left to go into the show, is that like instantaneous, or is that like over an actual week?
No. So what happens when they're there? I don't believe that time is moving in real life because when he gets home, it's only been like a couple of hours and his mom came back home from her like trip away.
So the guy's just
So
watching the marathon, and then he's just like, that's why he's calling them again or something.
the aspect of the repairman to me almost reminds me of kind of like Christopher Walken and Click or something. It's like this like person that just shows up whenever they need to
It'd be
show
like
up.
bit supernatural.
This movie I would say is classified as fantasy. So that aspect of it with like him, I wouldn't necessarily look at the logic behind it because it's definitely like more of a fantasy element that he's able to just kind of have control and access them and go into the TV and
Yeah,
talk to them and it's not really like actually moving through time or anything.
yeah, interesting. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Like, I also love how they don't over-explain it. It's like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, here's a controller. Press the controller, you're in the
Yeah.
fucking you're in the show. I think that's really. I love it when shows do that. Yeah, Tobey Maguire. I like him. I just can't not see Spider Man.
I know.
So like, there's a part where he stands up for his mum in the show, and it's just like it really feels like him standing up against Flash in Spider Man. It's not a bad thing. I just think it's something I just can't unsee.
I think
Uh,
it's kind of funny that this came first.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, and it's just yeah, it's hilarious. But yeah, no, this is really cool. I love the idea. I love how straight away it's just all black and white, and
Mhm.
and the whole you said perfectly. Just like you have to assume the role rather than like they're just dropped in there and they're new people. I think that's really cool. Reminds me of like Ready Player One.
Yeah, and it makes more sense considering the mindset of the people in Pleasantville that they would assume roles. Because can you imagine if it was like Back to the Future, where like Marty just shows up there as some new kid?
Oh
If
yeah,
that happened in Pleasantville, they would be like so thrown off their entire world. I mean, their world's already shaken up just by them being there, but yeah, let alone if they were new people. So yeah, I
absolutely.
just find this movie to be so charming. I love in the beginning how you get to see the drastic contrast between their world in the 90s, like even like the monotonous just like going through each class and the teachers kind of going through their spiel, and you can kind of see how like their world in the 90s, there's a lot more at stake. There's like climate change being talked about, there's just all these things that are more real, and then they go into Pleasantville and the teachers talking about how the streets just go in a loop, like it's like their world is just so disconnected. So I love the parallels that they kind of paint in that first chunk of the movie.
Yeah, big time.
Cool. Okay, so David Budd goes to work at the diner
But
where he meets his boss, Mr. Johnson, played by
not
the incredibly
another jump scare.
Jeff Daniels.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit, that's young Jeff Daniels.
Yep. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
he's so incredibly talented. I love
same.
him, and I feel like people forget that he's like actually a good actor, not just like comedies.
Yeah,
um,
every like 6 months you get the on TikTok it pops up at the first scene of Newsroom. It's
yes.
like why America isn't the greatest country in the world anymore,
Yep.
and you're like, oh wait, no, he can actually act through his teeth. Like that's unreal.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we can see from the minute we meet him that he's a bit off. He seems a bit more melancholy than other people that we've encountered so far. Mary Sue and Skip show up at the diner for their date, and Skip shares with her that she's the keenest girl in school. I love her reaction. She's like, the keenest? Like, she's just kind of making fun of him at this point. Like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Like, everything's so PG. I would even argue maybe even G rated.
Yeah,
They're talking about holding hands as like the furthest they're going to go. So it's all just really funny. So Jennifer is determined to do more than just hold hands. So she convinces him to sneak away to a place called Lover's Lane. Jennifer does not listen to her brother and decides to go for it with getting physical with Skip, which catches him very off guard, as all these bodily feelings he has never had before. And they get very physical with one another. I love how you can see all the cars lined up, but like nobody's doing anything. They're just
Yeah.
sitting there staring at the
I,
river.
I love the little comments. He's like, gee whiz, I thought we'd have to be linked up for a few months before you'd want to come here.
Uh-huh. Yep, very old school way of thinking. After his first night with Mary Sue, Skip notices a bright red rose on his drive home, which is the first bit of color the town has ever seen. After lecturing her about her choices, Jennifer tells David that maybe their world wants to be changed, but he continues to believe that she needs to stop shaking things up. We flash through the teens of the town, kind of now all like making out with one another, being much more physical, kind of being a bit more open minded, while also getting more and more color being introduced into the town. It's heavily focused on the teenagers, though, and obviously within the kids at the high school. David continues efforts to try to get home, but he's unable to get the TV repairman to help him quite yet. And he helps Mr. Johnson, I think his name is Bill, through his struggles of not always enjoying his work. He kind of comes to him and is expressing that sometimes he really just does not enjoy his day to day routine of his job. Don't we all? And he expresses to him that the only thing he's ever looked forward to is in Christmas time when he gets to paint the custom window mural. But David tells him to just try to forget about that and keep going about normal day to day activities. But you can see how depressed he is with the diner and the current routine. I love these little moments right here where you can start to really see it's like David wants to help, but he knows that he just wants to try to keep things the way they are because he wants to obviously try to get home and not shake things up for them. But I feel like he gets little glimpses here of it's like he wants to help and wants him to be happy, but he has to like remind himself that that's not really his place, which obviously that changes later, but that's kind of where he's at this point in the film.
Yeah.
Betty asks Mary Sue about what goes on at Lover's Lane, and she's honest with her about sex, even explaining to her what it is. But Betty expresses that George would never do those things with her, and she learns that she doesn't need him to do some of those things. So she has herself a night in the bathtub.
I love that where the fucking tree just catches fire.
Yes, and I love that it's the wife from Face Off.
That's right. That's who it is. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. I really like her in this role, actually. The more things change and the more sexual the town gets, the more they see color and the more things go wrong, such as the first real fire in town, like you just mentioned. This is like one of my favorite scenes. And David runs up to the fire department and yells, "Fire, fire," like 7 times. Finally, he says, "Cat," because earlier in the movie, we see that the firemen, all they do is capture cats from trees.
Yeah.
They don't actually put out fires. So that gets them all running up and they have no clue how to actually put out the fire. So David steps in and the town gives him an honorary award for his efforts. And everyone's so curious now. All the teens at the diner gather around him, asking him how he knew how to put out the fire. And he tells them that where he's from, that's what firemen do. And this basically leads to the conversation about what is outside of Pleasantville. They're all very intrigued. So he tells them about roads that keep going, rivers that keep running, and they even discover that if they tell them about storybooks like Huckleberry Finn, then the pages of the originally blank books will start to fill in with the entire story for them to read themselves. I think this is really cool. It's obviously a very fantasy element, but like the fact that if they share knowledge with them, then it's like
It
it
becomes
fills in the
fact,
book
yeah.
and they can now consume the entire thing.
Yeah, that's really
Um,
cool.
it's a really cool aspect of it. So this is a pretty monumental moment in the movie because it parallels with times in history people have tried to maybe expand their mind or change their beliefs. And this moment is really where the teenagers are, being intrigued to go to the library, reading books nonstop, basically learning about the world. It's almost like they're going from like toddlers to like, you know, kids and teenagers and really like expanding their mind and learning about things for themselves. Like you were saying, that self discovery we all have to go on where you make decisions for yourself and learn things you want to learn that you're interested in.
Yeah.
So big monumental kind of moment for the movie. So I'll stop here. Do you have anything else to add?
No, you're killing it with these notes. Yeah, I love Bud in this film because he's like so in on it. But Jennifer, I also love how like at first she's reluctant, being like, "Oh, this is really stupid." By the way, none of them are freaked out. That's like, "Oh, we just go along with it," like, which I kind of fuck with. Like, I think that's just like you need it for a film like this. But yeah, that scene where Skip is driving away, he sees the red rose. I love that scene. That scene's so cool. And then like it's Skip's being the one to actually see it first hand, and like Skip's just such a knucklehead. one thing I thought was really interesting is the I don't know what's the guy's name, the guy that kidnapped them, basically, like the repairman.
The repairman, yeah.
Yeah, how he you see him every now and then. He's like, you can't change anything. Don't mess with the universe. And like,
Hmm.
cause they're messing with the universe a little bit here and there. Skips like sees the red rose, and then the next day all the basketball team can't make the shots. So like it's
Uh-huh.
not so perfect. And at first like Bud completely blames it on Jennifer, or David completely blames it on Jennifer for like getting it Skip. And but it's equally his fault as well, because he's doing stuff like putting out the fire and like sharing knowledge and stuff like that. It's like he's probably way worse. So like I think that's all really interesting. This movie's cool.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that it's like as much as David wants to, he almost wants to embrace it because he's so obsessed with the show. He's like, "Oh, I'll just like enjoy this being in this thing that I'm so obsessed with." But it's almost like as he's there, he realizes that it's really
Mm,
not as great as he thought it was. Whereas Jennifer already kind of knew that. So she's just like one step ahead of him. But yeah, he kind of puts the blame on her kind of, I guess, want to make things a bit more like sexual and chaotic for the teenagers. But then she does something even like sharing Huckleberry Finn with them. So it's like she's not just sharing one aspect of life, she's sharing kind of a little bit of everything. But I would say that the fire causes way more hecticness
way
than
more.
the she's doing. Yeah, for sure. No, I just think this is like such an interesting premise, and I just think all the characters are so charming. And I also like that there is that like deeper messaging of, and we'll get into it in these next couple sections, but of worlds colliding. It's like these, old school mindset adults not agreeing with
Mm-hmm.
modern change. That's something that's still applicable even to this day. So,
Big time.
uh, yeah, it's really done in like an interesting way where it seems kind of lighthearted, but there is really a lot to chew on underneath. Okay, so speaking of that, we have the mayor of Pleasantville, very unhappy with the changes, expresses concerns to George, who, by the way, William H. Macy, also another awful
He's
character,
also just a piece of shit in every film.
such a gigantic pussy. Like he's just awful in this movie. I mean, I know by the end it's a little different, but I cannot stand him.
Yeah, agreed.
David finds Betty in the kitchen crying. Oh, I love this scene so much. Discovers that she's now fully in color, which terrifies her. And she's afraid of people seeing her this way. So David so sweetly helps cover her up in makeup. I'm not sure how realistic this is that it would make her look enough like she's in black and white, but I think the concept is good. And I think it's really sweet in that moment that he's trying to help her. He doesn't judge her. He just kind of
He
uh,
helps.
yeah,
Sees
helps.
that she's distraught a bit and helps.
100%. Yeah. And this is the moment I think that finally pushes David to understand that he can help these people, and that there's really not a purpose in trying to keep the peace. He might as well kind of embrace it because it's like things are happening, things are changing. So if you can help them, why not?
Yeah.
So next, he brings Mr. Johnson an art book. Since he loves painting, he shows him all kinds of historical paintings, including Starry Night, which makes him very happy. He tells David he'll never be able to do anything like those paintings and never be able to create anything in color. And I love the line when he says, I think he says like, "Bet they don't know how lucky they are," like implying that people don't always appreciate what they have. It's like in modern time we have lots of color and art that's in color, and people just kind of don't even think twice about it. So it is kind of an interesting way to look at it that from his perspective, he's missing out on something that other people have, kind of just automatically.
Big time.
David is lectured through the TV by the repairman. This is where he's now very unhappy with the changes he's making to the town, but David tries to ignore him this time and says he's not ready to leave yet. I think he's finally motivated to really stick this out and see what can happen. Jennifer expresses confusion as to why she's still in black and white, even after all the sex she's been having. And David tells her maybe it's not about just sex. Duh, Jennifer. David takes Margaret out on a date. We haven't really talked about Margaret yet, but she's like a girl at the school who's supposed to go out with this other guy in the TV show, but she takes a liking to David. So that kind of shakes things up as well. But they go on a date to Lover's Lane, which is now this like beautiful, bright park, like this peaceful oasis for all the teens. They're reading and hanging out and just having a great time. Betty goes to visit Mr. Johnson at the same time at the diner because they seem to have this like unspoken connection. They haven't really spoken yet, but they kind of have like looks and gazes across the room. She sees all the beautiful colored paintings he's done. He discovers through her crying that she's actually in color. I love this moment. He helps her wipe away all her makeup and tells her he thinks that she shouldn't cover it up. And that's the first time I think that a man has like accepted her for, who she really is, which is a big moment for her. And
Oh
then he
yeah.
proceeds to paint a portrait of her that she poses for. And then while David and Margaret are on their date, Skip tries to get Jennifer to come out, but she turns him down to study because her focus has now kind of shifted on expanding her knowledge, focusing on herself, which is something she was not really interested in her reality. So she's kind of trying to. I love this aspect of the movie that both David and Jennifer are trying to use this experience to almost like better themselves, like the things that they struggled with in their reality they're using this opportunity to almost like grow themselves so that they can also be better, which is just kind of, I think, a special aspect of it that I guess I wasn't really expecting the first time I watched it. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, no, it is. That's a good point. I didn't even think about it like that.
Yeah, because it's like David is it's more subtle with him, but he's very selfish. Like he has no interest in his mother, he has no interest in his family, he has no interest in really anything outside of this show. So I feel like this experience forces him to kind of look at other people and like really see where he can be more present in his life. And I think that is shown obviously through the ending. But yeah, I just think it's really interesting. So something completely new happens. It starts pouring rain for the first time but David is able to show the teenagers, at least at Lover's Lane, that it's not scary. They learn to enjoy the rain. Meanwhile, many of the adult men, including the mayor, see this as a major problem for the town. Um, getting to one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie. The mayor gets together with all his, I'm calling them his followers.
Oh, I
At,
hate the mayor sucks.
he sucks so bad. At the bowling alley where George shares that he came home to no wife, no greeting, and most importantly, no dinner.
No dinner.
No dinner. The entire scene is absolute gold, in my opinion. All these men just talking about how awful it is that their wives are telling them no or refusing to just follow orders. It's so typical in a world like this that you're going to have this like group of old school sexist dudes that just want their wife to have dinner ready and take orders. And I love the whole. You can tell that the writing they're trying to be like really on the nose with making fun of people like this. But I think it's still a really funny scene.
There's like, yeah, they're all like, I thought it may be one of those small TV dinners, and like, not even a TV dinner. God
Yeah.
damn.
And then the mayor's like, "How many more times can we go? George, no dinner." Or the other guy got like an iron on his back or something. It's just like, how
Well,
much
the
more of this
iron.
can we take? So after discussing the problems of the town, they make a pact to stick together and make things go back to how they were. The next morning, Jennifer and Margaret both wake up in color, but David remains in black and white for some reason. Betty shows George that she is in color now and that she doesn't want it to go away. He tries to tell her what to do and tell her to fix it and what they're gonna, do to make it better. And she says, "No, I'm not," and she leaves, which I think is a really big moment for her, just
Yeah,
kind of
same.
walking away from this life that she's kind of had for a long time. I have to say, the way that they intertwine the color in the black and white, I already said this earlier, but I wrote it down, so I'm going to say it again. Super well done. Like
Yep.
it looks gorgeous.
It's really
It's
cool.
I kept, like just wondering how they did that. Like, is it just all in like post? Like they just edit it that way and like change the color scale? I don't know how they do it, but it looks wonderful.
Yeah, agreed. That's so cool.
So the town at this point is at a where they're calling it quote unquote colored people are lesser than, which I think, again, some of these themes are prevalent in all aspects of life. And I think they do a really good job at, like, even though it's a very, like, whimsical fantasy world, it's like, oh, yeah, these are problems that the world's been having for a very long time. And, they're just kind of showcasing it in a different light. But yeah, the mayor reminds everyone to keep the pleasant things separated from the unpleasant things. A big stir happens after Mr. Johnson paints a nude portrait of Betty up on the wall of the diner for everyone to see. Go, Betty. This
Oh,
causes a
Betty.
riot and destruction to take place by those who want things to stay the same. While some teenagers harass her. Um, Honestly, forgot about that scene. Really creepy. Really, yeah, not
Yeah, it's not good.
not
It's
good.
not good at all.
Uh, but David steps in to defend her, and this is what finally turns him to be in color. Is I think kind of like I said, being present and really like showing up for the people that he loves. And I think he's developed, a love for Betty as kind of a mother figure. So This is finally kind of what brings him out of his shell. I think it's a good parallel to like the beginning of the movie where he's like in his mind talking to that girl and then he realizes he's not even actually talking to her.
Yeah.
I think this is like a moment for him where it's like he actually steps up, actually says something, and isn't like all timid and afraid.
Another scene from Spider-Man. Hey, MJ, you want? He's like pretending he's
Yeah,
talking to her. I was
it's true.
like, man,
It really
this.
is reminiscent of that. I feel like whoever saw this movie must have been like, yeah, we need him to
Yeah,
play
he's perfect
Peter.
for it. Yeah, he was a great Peter Parker.
So yeah, this is the catalyst to a lot of the gross behavior in the town, including they destroy the mural, they burn books. Does this remind you of anything? I know you don't live in America, but we've seen these things before.
Like you also seen it in Europe as well during 1940s.
It's been happening for
Yeah.
too long. We'll just say that. But yeah,
If
so
you see it happening, don't be excited.
I'll stop one last time. I have one more final section, but anything to add here? I know we've kind of stopped along the way, but anything you like about the messaging here or any of the moments?
No, some messaging's really subtle, some's really on the nose. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's like, I don't know, it's just the way it's written.
Hmm.
But I think it's really well told. I like how Bud's like one of the last ones to get color.
Same.
Even though he's like the main character and
Mhm.
he's like not a bad guy and he's like embracing everyone that has color, but then like him actually standing up and he's finding himself. Like, I think that's really cool. This town's disgusting. This town's
Yep.
so gross, which is kind of funny because like oh like I kind of think that's kind of the point where the actual show when you're watching the show in the movie, you're like, oh, this is just such a whimsical, fun town to
Mhm.
be a part of. But then you go in Grain, you're like, oh, no one has any identity, and that's what I think the whole point is.
Right. I
Yeah.
agree. I think it almost reminds, and we've seen other movies that do this, but it's not a great comparison. But I just watched Blue Velvet for the first time, and it's obviously a very different take and like David Lynch type of take, but it's like a Leave It to Beaver type of world where everything looks perfect on the outside, but when you zoom in, you realize that there's like this dark element to it. Obviously, in Blue Velvet, it's much darker, but here it's kind of like, yeah, like you said, nobody has their own identity. Nobody, they want to keep them unknowledgeable, uneducated, you know, basically thinking one way, which that mindset still exists to this day in 2025. You know, even though we're talking about a TV show and a movie here, like these are all relevant things that happen in societies. And so
Hmm.
I think it's really cool that it's like this charming fantasy approach, but there's like a dark layer of like reality and like things you can transfer into real life that kind of happen throughout the themes here,
Big
which
time.
is why I appreciate this movie so much.
Big time.
Nice. Okay. Well, last section here, just kind of wrapping up the movie. So all of the townspeople in color, including David, Jennifer, Betty, and Mr. Johnson, get together to camp out at the diner and decide to stay positive, clean it up after the destruction, and just try not to lose hope or get discouraged. The mayor issues a new code of conduct that gives specific rules around not being violent, but bans things that he knows that they would want, such as even banning colored paint, which is clearly a direct thing towards Mr. Johnson and his murals that he's been doing. He expresses heartbreak to David, telling him he doesn't know what he would do if he couldn't paint. So David helps him stay up all night painting a new mural outside to showcase all the changes and pain that has gone on in the town. It's a really impactful scene, I feel like, whenever they wake up and you kind of get to see the close up of everything that he's drawn. This causes both of them to be arrested while George visits David, but in jail, he asks him, what went wrong? And David explains to him that nothing went wrong. People change, and that's okay. Like all these people thinking that like this is all such a big deal. And it's
Mm.
like people are just trying to learn how to think for themselves, and they're just changing, and that's fine. There's a hearing held for David and Mr. Johnson's punishment for breaking the code of conduct. David attempts to get them to all see the light and understand what is happening is okay. He is able to convince George that maybe he misses more than just the cooking. Maybe there's a reason he doesn't like Betty not being home so much. Maybe there's a whole piece of him missing when she's gone because he's in love with her, even if he can't explain it. George realizes he truly does love her. And after David moves out of the way, now George appears in color. So David's really just trying to showcase in real time that it can happen to any of them. He's able to get the mayor so riled up that even he changes to color, proving his point that they can all change, some good, some bad. Shows him himself in the mirror, and of course, he runs out, freaking out. The town comes out of the hearing to find the entirety of Pleasantville is now in color, and that there is even an entire world outside of there that they can leave and travel to. So basically, this whole speech and this whole thing has made it to where even like on the TV, they can like see the Eiffel Tower, like basically that whole thing. And that is a bit of a stretch to me that the entirety of that hearing led to their whole
The
world
whole
being
world, yeah.
flipped upside down. But for the sake of the movie, it's good for the people of Pleasantville, I guess. Jennifer expresses she's going to stay and go to college there and keep focusing on herself. So she's not going back to her reality. Not sure how that's really possible, but that's what she's decided to do.
Yeah, we'll talk.
What?
We'll talk
Is
about
that
this
the
in a
part that you have a
second.
problem with? Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
she's a
David says,
child. She's a child.
yeah, I know. I know. I'm almost done. You can get your frustration out in a second. David says his goodbyes, and Betty even gives him a Letterman jacket to keep, which is really a really sweet moment. And then back home, David finds his real mother crying at the table, where he's able to be very present with her and help her through her struggles, using his experience with Betty to really show up for his mom in a way that he never has before, which I think is really cool. We end with saying goodbye to Pleasantville, where people are happy but still living life on their own terms in vibrant color. Betty and George are on a bench talking about what's going to happen now. They laugh when thinking about what is going to happen in the future. After they laugh for a minute, the camera moves back from Betty, and she's now sitting next to Mr. Johnson, who says, I guess I don't know either. That is Pleasantville. So give me your final thoughts, score, anything else that I missed, or anything else that you wanted to bring up.
So, how is David gonna tell the mum, "Hey, my sister now lives in a TV"?
Mm-hmm.
Um, how are they gonna explain that to the cops when they
I'm
come
not sure.
report? Because like when she doesn't appear at school, the school's gonna report that, and then
Yeah.
they're gonna investigate that, and then the cops are gonna come around and be like, "Hey, we're just doing a little welfare check, guys. Just a welfare check. Where's
Mm-hmm.
your daughter?" And then the daughter's, oh, don't. She's in the TV show that we watch every Monday night, Pleasantville. She's there. Look, there she's on the screen right there. Like, you've kidnapped this child,
Mm-hmm.
you've put her in this TV cabinet, and now she's just gonna remain there, and we're all
I think
okay
she
with
is
this,
18, I will say, because she's
and
going to
we're
college.
all okay with this. I'm not okay with this.
Yeah.
I'm not. Movie's great though. Yeah, I really enjoyed the film. I think I've given it 3.5. I think it's gonna go up on rewatch, but for the first watch, I think this is like really unique, fun, vibrant, and Tobey Maguire's great.
Absolutely. No, there's definitely some issues with it. It's not a perfect film by any means, and I have never thought that, but it's too long, first of all. I don't think it needs to be 2 hours. It probably could have been like a solid hour 40 and been a bit better, but I still love it. I think it's really charming. It's just one of those ones that I think more people need to watch. It's just one of those like films I think of when people are like, "What's a recommendation of like an underwatched film?" I always think of this one because it's an essential watch. I feel like it's worth your time. Not a 5-star film by any means, but I give it 4 stars. I think it's got a great cast. I think it does a great job balancing the charm with those dark elements I was talking about of the reality of living in a world like this, like you said, where you have no identity, and you're just following the rules of like what you've been told to do over and over and over again every day. So I like the fantasy elements. I think it's just really interesting and really cool. So big fan of this movie. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And yeah, I agree. Tobey Maguire is great. I think Reese Witherspoon's really
She's
funny.
awesome. She's also a billionaire. Did you know that?
Yeah, from her book club.
She's fucking awesome. Like,
Yeah,
whoa, man, that's so impressive.
great.
That
So yeah,
whole idea is so sick. If you don't know the idea, mad. Go look it up.
yes, she's killing it. So yeah, that's what we think of Pleasantville. We hope you all enjoyed it as well. If you had never seen it, or if you're rewatching it, and next week, next month, we're starting a new theme slash genre. We're doing M Night March.
Got it through. It took me months of convincing. I got it through.
That's our version of March Madness. So yeah, we'll be going through some of his films. I think we're starting off with Signs, and we have a special guest for that one. So look forward to that. But until then, we're going to do a quick draft. Harry had the great idea of drafting TV shows we'd like to be transported to. So we'll do 5 each, and I'm nice, so I'll let you go first.
Yes. Well, you're not going. You wouldn't know what I'm going to go with first, so that makes total
I have
sense.
no idea where you're going with this.
No. This is like one of my favorite shows for my childhood. So I'm just writing out the thing. Harry, number one. I'm gonna go Futurama.
Nice.
I think Futurama's world is sick. You always want to be there. Bunch of spaceships. It's exactly what you wish the future was. Futurama.
Yeah, absolutely. I've only really like poked in and out of that show, like when it's like been on TV and things like that. I really need to sit down and actually
Oh, the show's
watch through it.
unreal. Yeah, the show's great.
Nice one. Okay. Ooh. Okay. How do I want to go for the first one? Can you imagine if I said like Always Sunny?
Oh
I
yeah.
would never survive with that group of degenerates. Um,
You just want to go to Philadelphia, like.
Maybe go to Patty's Pub. No,
Yeah.
I think actually for the first pick, I think I'm gonna go with that 70s show. I think it's not my favorite
Mm.
show, but I think as far as like a vibe and a time period, I'm a massive 70s fan and I love all the aesthetic. I love everything about it. I don't want there to be technology. I don't want there to be cell phones, social media. Like I just want to chill with my friends in the basement, while my dad comes down and yells at me. So
Awesome.
sounds great.
Um, Now, Ash,
Hmm.
question:
Hmm.
does the place have to be like the primary location of this show? Like if I picked like an anthology type show and I picked one location.
You'd have to pick if it's an anthology, you'd have to pick like a specific season or like a specific world. Like
Yeah.
you can't just
So if
say
I
the
do
whole show.
like in Loki where they show Asgard, can I say Asgard? I'm okay for
Hmm.
that to be vetoed. I got plenty more.
I think we need to be more specific about like just the show in general because I'm not saying like that
That's
70
fine.
show
That's
season
fine.
8 episode 2,
Well, I'm gonna
kind of
go Mandalorian, Tatooine, because that's majority, but specifically so I can go gamble on pod racing.
okay. You're ridiculous. I was not
I'm
expecting
also
that.
gonna be rich.
Nice. Okay.
I'd gamble so much away at pod racing.
I think I'm gonna take one of my favorite shows because yeah, I'd love to be in this world. I'm gonna go with Parks and Recreation. I absolutely adore this show. I think every
Love it.
person in that show is hilarious. I think I would be fine working for Pawnee government and just, having a blast with my friends.
I love that. That's awesome. There's so many different
You're
worlds.
doing like such a more sci-fi element to it. I
Well,
love
I'm a
it.
sci-fi boy. Well, here you go. I would like Bikini Bottom in SpongeBob SquarePants.
So
Assuming that we
but you're
can.
just going to SpongeBob. You're just going to like the show in general, right? So you're just
Yeah,
going to
well, I want
Bikini.
to go. I want to go get a Krabby Patty.
Nice. That's a really good pick, actually. I wish I would have thought of that.
Krabby Patties always look so good. What are they?
Question.
What are they made out of? That's a good question. Because it ain't beef.
Crab meat.
So you
Can you
reckon
imagine?
Mr.
Can
Krabs
you
is
imagine?
selling
No,
him?
I'm joking. Um, if you had to go into SpongeBob and you had to assume a role, who would you want to be?
Hmm. That's a plankton probably. But
I feel like I want to be Patrick.
SpongeBob.
That's fantastic. Okay.
That's fantastic.
That's a good one. I want to pick an animated show, but I'm like blanking so hard on animated shows. I wouldn't want to go to like Big Mouth or something. God, that would be awful.
That'd be terrible.
Um, okay, I got to go with something detective related because I'm a detective girly at heart. So, because SVU is so brutal, I'm going to go with the X-Files.
Love it.
I want to be a detective. I want to be in there. I want to be investigating.
Love it.
I love the X-Files. I used to stay up late watching that when I was a kid.
I'm gonna go specifically Rivendell in Rings of Power.
Hmm.
So I can just go drink wine with the elves. So I wanna
Your
do.
reasoning behind all these is so funny to me. To
Yeah.
gamble, to drink with elves.
Well, yeah.
It's fantastic. I love it. I actually
Specifically
haven't seen Ring.
Rivendell.
Okay,
You don't need to see it, but Rivendell looks cool.
dope. All right. Weird pick coming up here for me, but
Incoming.
I'm a bit of a witchy gal. So I'm going to go with
Charmed.
American Horror Story Coven specifically. I want to be in that witch house. I know it's risky, but to be able to be there with Emma Roberts just being the best bitchy witch ever,
She's a baddie.
it'd be so cool. I would love to be in Jessica Lange's presence.
She's cool. Now we get into the. I'm like not too sure. Like I wish Oh wait, no, it's not out yet, is it? I wish that fucking the Potter show has been out yet. That'd be good.
Mm.
See, I'd go to Harry Potter.
You don't want to be in Severance? You don't want to
Not
be?
really. Not really.
I don't either.
I would bully my work self to death. Like that person would hate it. Damn. Like, do I just go that? No, but I want the one. I'm thinking about like what's because I got a list, but they're all just movie stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck it. I want to go. I think it would just be a fun experience to experience university or college this way. Community. Community seems like fun.
Okay. Yeah,
Like community college seems like a lot of fun.
that's a good one. I actually have never watched the whole show. I've watched like the first couple episodes and I just could never like get into it. But it does seem like a fun environment.
It's great. You need to watch it. But you got too much to watch. Actually, don't watch Community. Watch Succession.
Yeah, that seems more my alley anyways. Okay, for my final pick, I'm just gonna go with the classic. I'm gonna go with Friends. Living in New York City with my besties, just doing life. That sounds like a dream.
That sounds pretty good. Sounds
All right.
pretty good.
Ooh, okay, so to wrap it up, Harry took Futurama, Mandalorian. What was the specific thing? you said?
Tatooine.
Tatooine,
So I can go
SpongeBob SquarePants, Bikini Bottom,
Yep.
Rings of Power, Rivendell to have a beer with an elf,
Mm-hmm.
and Community. I took that 70s show,
Yeah, Riverdale.
Parks and Recreation, The X-Files, American Horror Story Coven, and Friends.
When you're like, I'm a witchy gal, I was like, oh yeah, nice. You're going Charmed. Yeah, a little San Francisco life.
No, that would be a fun one though. I do like Charmed, but it's been way too long since I've watched that.
Can I change out my Community answer, or is it too late?
Too late, but what would you do instead?
A Supernatural. Me and the Winchester boys going to hunt some ghosts. I think that'd be pretty good.
That would be pretty good. I like it.
Hell
People
yeah.
BS on the people who were saying online that they'd go into The Walking Dead. Like they're way too confident that they would survive the zombies.
Yeah, yeah, or like Game of Thrones. Like that's medieval time. That time sucked for
You are
everyone.
done for. Like,
Yeah.
no.
Oh, but they got dragons. Who cares? They also got zombies.
Yeah. they're
Dragons
gonna
also kill everyone. Like,
Mhm. All right. Well, that is our draft. That is our episode on Pleasantville. And that is the end of Time Travel Month. Let us know in the comments who had the better draft. Let us know which was your favorite movie from this month. We had some good ones. And for next month, again, we're doing M. Night March. So get excited for that. And please watch Signs. But until then, I am Ash, and that's Harry, and we will see you at the movies.